Hi everyone, I just returned from seeing Spider-Man No Way Home, the third of the MCU Spider-Man trilogy thus far. There's going to be more movies. I don't usually do movie reviews like this, but can't wait until the podcast. I want to get out my thoughts right now. I've got a decent amount to say. First, if you're not familiar with me and my love of Spider-Man, Spider-Man is my all-time favorite superhero. It was the first comic I ever read. It was classic, what was it? Marvel Tales 166, which reprinted Amazing Spider-Man 28, the first Molten Man, who's a minor villain that only showed up like a handful of times throughout Spider-Man's history, and I actually own the original Amazing Spider-Man 28 in decent condition there. It's an old black cover. It's a famous cover because it's easily damaged. That's during the Ditko run, which is what this Spider-Man plush right here is, or doll. I can say doll, right? Guys can play with dolls. This is a Ditko style sort of Spider-Man right there. So, give you background on how I've rated the previous Spider-Man movies to give you some context. The Raimi trilogy, one was a good movie. It was important to help reestablish the superhero genre as a viable movie, genre again in the early 2000s. The sequel was excellent, almost universally beloved. The sequel, the third one, was a disappointment and a mess. There's a history behind that if you look into it. Even Raimi doesn't like that movie. Sam Raimi, who directed the original trilogy. And then for the Andrew Garfield films, very mixed. The first Andrew Garfield film, The Amazing Spider-Man, I think it's all right. It's pretty good. I didn't like the fact that they try to make Stark's parents and Oscorp sort of connected to how Spider-Man gets his powers versus just being sort of like a random freak event. And then the sequel, going with the popular opinion, it's a mess. It's too many villains, too much going on. It just doesn't click. Then, of course, let's go fast forward to the animated movie Into the Spider-Verse. Excellent movie, I thought. And then for the MCU Spider-Man movies, Homecoming I thought was pretty good. I had some quibbles with it, with the amount of Iron Man in it and the Stark tech. Spider-Man wasn't on his own, so I'll get into that in a bit with my review of this. And then Far From Home I thought was a better film. I loved the portrayal of Mysterio. I thought that was kind of clever, even though it was connected to Stark again, a lot of that in the movie, but they did it in a smarter way than the original, I thought. And then here we are at No Way Home, the Home trilogy, which is weird. So if you last left off at the end of Far From Home, there's going to be some spoilers in here, by the way, but I'll get to the spoilers. At the end of Far From Home, Mysterio frames Spider-Man for the drone attack in London, and also says that, he basically is a murderer. And then J. Jonah Jameson, which is in this universe is like Alex Jones, conspiracy theorist online, even minor spoiler, hawking, like supplements pills like Alex Jones does. He outs Spider-Man to everyone. And this third film immediately picks up where Far From Home leaves off. So No Way Home has Spider-Man basically running for his life, and then trying to put the pieces together after everyone knows who he is. So no spoilers real quick. I thought it was outstanding. Not going to mince words. I'm trying to keep my Spider-Man bias out of this, but like I said, I didn't love Far From Home. I thought it was really good, but wasn't like outstanding to me. And then Homecoming, I thought was pretty good. Like a 7 out of 10. So I do have a Spider-Man bias, but I can keep it in check throughout these films. This is an outstanding movie. The writing was tight. I have to give credit to the writers here for packing a lot into this script with a lot of characters. The writers were Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. Writers don't get enough credit. John Watts did a great job directing again, the third in a row. And the acting, of course, was great all around. This is the most I liked Tom Holland in the role of Spider-Man. It really felt more and more like this is Peter Parker. This is the character. This isn't just, an errand boy for Tony Stark. This is a person taking responsibility, which I'll get into there. No complaints about any of that. The action set pieces, there's minor spoilers. There's 3 major action set pieces in this film. They are all very, very well done. Most of the effects are outstanding, excellent to outstanding. I mean, it's Disney quality MCU effects at this point. It's what you expect, but nothing that was like, okay, that looks terrible. No, it was all good. And surprisingly, without too much spoilers before I go into it, this is somewhat of an origin movie. I'll have to get into spoilers to explain why, but it was surprising that you take like 3 films to get into to like your full origin of your superhero character, especially since that character appeared in 2.5 Avenger movies, basically. If you count Civil War as almost like an Avengers movie, and then Infinity War, and then Endgame cameo. He's already been in like 6 movies. The Tom Holland character. Am I missing one? I might be missing one. So I enjoyed it. Grin ear to ear for certain scenes. I have a couple of minor quibbles, but nothing that can really dent my appreciation for what they accomplished here. What I think they pulled off was just as impressive as what was pulled off, that the Russo brothers pulled off for Infinity War, in terms of balancing characters and scene and having nice set pieces and having it all work, having like one cohesive piece of film work with a lot being thrown into it. Tom Holland said in an interview that this was like, the most ambitious superhero movie, or something to that effect, to something to rival, I think, Infinity War. And I don't think that's far off because there's a lot at stake here, a lot of characters, and unlike Infinity War, there's a lot of emotional payoff to these characters as it happens. It isn't just like, okay, we're going back and forth between different scenes with different characters. You have to follow these certain characters all the way through and give them something to do and juggle them at the same time. And it mostly works. For the most part, it works. So I did see his point when it comes to that. This has sort of not reinvigorated, but it makes me interested to see what comes next. Next one is going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I think it's coming out in February. February and March. Sam Raimi, who directed the first 3 Spider-Man movies, is going to be directing that one. So, and he's a nice horror movie, so it'd be interesting to see what he does with the property of Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumberbatch does a fantastic job as Doctor Strange. He's in a decent amount of the movie here, co-starring in it. No complaints about that. And then I loved how Zendaya has gotten more and more into the role of MJ. She's fantastic. She has great chemistry with Tom Holland, which makes sense, because in real life they have chemistry because they're dating in real life. I think every Superman and every Spider-Man movie, Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire dated for a bit during the filming of the first one or second one, and then Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone dated, I think, during the first or second movie they filmed that as well. There's something about the chemistry between the love interest of Spider-Man and Spider-Man. There's something, maybe it's the suit, but like I said, grin from ear to ear. If I had to give it a quick score, trying to keep my bias out of it, I give it a 9 out of 10. I'd put this in probably, there's a lot of top 5. It's definitely the top 6 or 7 best superhero movies ever made, in my opinion. I'm not saying it's the best one. I'm not saying it's a better film than, or even a better MCU film than something like Winter Soldier, which to me is like a modern masterpiece. But I enjoyed it more because I love Spider-Man. So in terms of as a movie, I give it a 9 out of 10. 8.5 maybe if once my glow comes down. As a Spider-Man fan, though, it's a 10 out of 10 as a Spider-Man fan. And as a fan of these past, talking about 5 movies pre-MCU, we're up to 8 movies. If you're a fan of the other movies, and you have to see those movies, all 5, really to get the maximum enjoyment out of this film. So if you haven't seen those 5 previous Spider-Man movies before the 2 of this trilogy, see the previous 7. You got to see the previous 7, or else you'll be lost. You'll be lost when it comes to this. But as a Spider-Man fan, I'm through the moon for this film. There's not much more I could have asked. There's obviously, it's not spoilers, it's in the trailers. There's obviously callbacks to the previous movies. And it's done in an intelligent way to sort of bring it all together. It doesn't feel like cheap. It doesn't feel like just cheap fan service. The characters that come back, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like there's a method to it and a meaning to it, and they actually have things to do and things to say. And surprisingly, the characters get a lot more screen time and if dialogue and even character arcs, even the minor villains like Lizard. I didn't think Lizard would get like more than like a line and a half, and Lizard gets his time to shine. Sandman gets his time to shine. Obviously, Electro, Jamie Foxx comes back. There's actually, I think, a commercial focuses on him. Gets his time to shine. They did a great balance when it comes to this. Green Goblin gets to shine, which I'll get into. And maybe I should just go right into spoilers now at the 10:20 mark. I'm going into spoilers, and I'll mark that on YouTube. By the way, no one in the comments spoil anything. Then again, you shouldn't be watching this. I'm putting spoilers. If you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this. It's too late. Okay, spoiler time. When I first saw or heard about this, I really didn't know how much Disney slash Marvel would go all in when it comes to bringing back the characters. And for the most part, with a couple exceptions, they went all in when it comes to this. And they put the time and effort into making sure the script was right and ready to go. And 2 hours and 15 minutes just flew by. It just flew by. I got spoiled a little bit yesterday. Nothing major. One major thing I did get a little bit spoiled, but I kind of knew something like that was going to happen. So it wasn't like a complete, like, oh my God, you ruined my experience watching the movie. But there's always going to be griefers online that try to do that. I had to go over the Rotten Tomatoes real quick. The Rotten Tomatoes score on this, I think it's like 94%, which, remember, that doesn't mean it's 94 out of 100. That means 94% of critics give it a positive review. 95%, wow. Critics' consensus: a bigger, bolder Spider-Man sequel. No Way Home expands the franchise's scope and stakes without losing sight of its humor and heart. There is a lot of humor and there's a ton of heart in this. And that's why, to me, it's way better than the first two of this trilogy. There's a lot more heart in this movie and the heart of what Peter Parker slash Spider-Man is. I think it was like an 8 out of 10 was the average review score on this. So I'm a little bit higher. I'm like a 9 here. All right, spoilers time. You get all the characters back. You get them back, and then some. You get your Tobey Maguire back. You get your Andrew Garfield back as the previous Spider-Man. You get almost every single villain back from the previous 5 movies. From the 3 Tobey Maguire movies and the 2 Andrew Garfield movies. You get almost every single villain back. Which is... And it's not just cool to see the fact that they've written the characters that well that you come along for the ride. Otto Octavius is the first to show up. He's in the first teaser trailer at the end. And when you're watching this, you're thinking, okay, they're just going to have fights and that's it, and they'll be captured or they'll go away. Otto Octavius has a complete character arc, and with major callbacks to Spider-Man 2. And the arms being in control of him, and then struggling with that, and then turning good, and there's references to to Tobey Maguire thwarting his plans with he had like the original almost arc reactor, he had the little molten sun thing going on, so he shows up, and I'm watching this, I'm like, I'm so shocked that they're giving these actors, not shocked, but so much to do. Thomas Hayden Church is back as Sandman. Not a huge amount to do there. Not really. That's probably my only minor quibbles. Not really the best character arc there, because he's like a good guy at the end of Spider-Man 3. So they had to like turn him from good to bad. But I like that they kept him good at first, and then they had to make him into a sort of a baddie in a way. But it didn't really make sense. So that was one of my only minor quibbles. Like, okay, they could have figured that out a little bit better. That's like a 0.5 off for that. But that's one of my only complaints. They bring back Jamie Foxx as a non-nerdy Electro, and he has a character arc as well. Who am I missing here? Am I missing the big one? The Lizard has an arc. They brought back that actor for Amazing Spider-Man as well. Who's a character there? Rice Ifans, did I say that correctly? And then finally, the main bad guy of the film, and almost steals the show, Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, is better than what he was in the original Spider-Man movie. More to do, more diabolical, if you can believe that, more menacing, more dangerous. The second set piece of this film, probably my favorite fight scene in the movie, is a rough and tumble brawl in a high-rise building between Peter and with Willem Dafoe going through like different stories of floors of this complex and things being thrown, and it is brutal and it is great. And Willem Dafoe really, man, whatever they paid him, it wasn't enough. I did not expect him to be carrying this much in the movie. So and I was disappointed in how Sony's been marketing this, because to me they should have been marketing Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. But when you think about it, I guess it was going to make the money no matter what. But they almost did a disservice, I think, not marketing Willem Dafoe more in this film. You only see him for like a second and a half with the goblin mask, and he gets rid of it, probably for the best there. But it's interesting. There's so much to this film that I didn't think they would go there. For example, like, you see all the villains interacting in Happy Hogan's place. They're trying to figure out how to like take their powers away so they can get back to where they are safely, so they don't get killed. It's a little bit shaky Deus Ex sort of device there that the movie all relies upon, but it's fine. Every movie needs it. But the interactions are great between all the different villains. You see their personalities. It makes sense, the dialogue. They all like because different characters know each other from different universes. So it's interesting to see, for example, Otto Octavius interact with Norman Osborn. They don't interact at all in these original Spider-Man movies, but they know each other obviously from that universe. So they added layers of complexity on that. I didn't give them credit that they would do these little extra little touches that made it seem that much better. That much, I guess, not real, but like, okay, this feels like these characters knew each other before, even though they never interacted, if that makes sense. The only one that didn't show up was Paul Giamatti's Rhino in his Rhino suit with the awful like Russian accent or whatever he had in the first one. Second movie, Amazing Spider-Man 2. But it's referenced. It's still referenced. And then, obviously, Topher Grace's Venom doesn't show up, but it gets referenced as well. It gets referenced where they're talking about aliens, all three characters, about fighting aliens. And then Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, is like, yeah, there's this alien with this goop. And then you can hear the audience go, oh, they're talking about Venom. It wasn't actually named Venom in the Sam Raimi films. So, not a lot happens for the first half hour of this film. It's a nice slow build, and then you get an excellent set piece on the highway, a one-on-one fight between Octavius, Dr. Octopus, and Spider-Man. Spider-Man number 1, Tom Holland. Extremely well done. There was maybe a minor callback to the train fight in Amazing Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2. There's one move that Spider-Man does. It does a kickflip off of him that's done in Spider-Man 2. And if it wasn't planned, it's an identical attack that Spider-Man did. But it's a great fight. It made sense. The audience was into it. Outstanding effects. Daytime fight. Love it. Then it slows down a bit. You get what do we do? Should we just Doctor Strange wants to basically send these characters back to their deaths. Most of them pass away in their old Spider-Man movies, with the big exception of Sandman does not pass away in Spider-Man 3. Spoilers if you haven't seen that movie. It's 14 years old. And then once you know that Norman Osborn's going to turn, there's always the conflict of Norman Osborn versus the Goblin in his head, from the crazy serum. Then of course Norman, his side comes out, the bad side. But it was well done. Like I said, that's the apartment fight or high-rise building fight. It was very, very good. That's where basically all the villains scatter to the winds there and go their separate ways. And you hit your low point of your film. You hit your low point about an hour. It's like an hour and 10 into the film. You hit your low point. And that low point is the death of Aunt May, of May Parker. And you could see it kind of coming. Had to brace myself for it, because who doesn't love Marissa Tomei's portrayal of Aunt May in these films? She's been fantastic. And then I figured out what their plan was. And if this was the director John Watts' plan the whole time, kudos, because I didn't see this coming. I did not think that you would get basically the full origin of Spider-Man, for the most part, in the moment and it would be not through Ben Parker's death, but through May Parker's death. After she gets hit by the glider, I guess the blade gets her. It's like a false, oh, she's not really hurt, but no, she's hurt and she's bleeding out. She passes away, but before she does, she utters the famous line, with great power comes great responsibility. And that was one of my major faults against the previous two movies. It didn't seem like a full Spider-Man origin because they never utter Ben Parker's name, I don't think, in the first two films or in Civil War. They mention when Tony's speaking to Spider-Man in Civil War briefly, Tom Holland's character does say something to the effect of, well, sometimes you don't do the right thing and people get hurt. So you don't know what happened with the origin. You know a spider bites somebody, becomes Spider-Man, but you don't know what happened to Uncle Ben. So in this universe, maybe Uncle Ben didn't get killed because of Peter's inaction to get a criminal who was coming his way, or a thief that ends up shooting him, like in the comics and in the other two origins. So putting it on May was not a stroke of genius, but it was smart. It was smart to do that. And obviously everyone was crying in the theater. I was tearing up because it's like, you're thinking of the character, Peter. He's been through a lot. Parents are gone. He's orphaned. The parents are dead. And then Uncle Ben dies, and you don't know how he does in these MCU movies, but he's dead. And then he sees, because of his action, he was trying to do the right thing though. He sees Aunt May, his beloved Aunt May, get killed in front of his eyes, and it's a sucker punch. And that's like the halfway point of the film, about like an hour, 10 into it, because I was clocking, because I was really interested in the next part, the appearance of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. They come into the film with Ned wishing to see his pal Peter. He uses the sling ring from Doctor Strange, who's off trapped in the mirror world or whatever. That was a set piece as well. That's a fourth set piece, but that's not really a fighting set piece. There's really four set pieces in this film. I'm not counting that when Spider-Man was trying to run off with the magic Deus Ex box to force all the villains back to their own universes and be killed, but that counts as well. Or was I? Okay, Aunt May, Uncle Ben. Oh yeah. So they come through with the sling ring portals. Crowd goes nuts. They see Andrew Garfield come through first. He reveals, I've been on this new world now for like a day. I don't know what's going on. And then they do it again, and there comes Peter. Tobey Maguire's Peter, not in the costume, and the crowd went ballistic. And I love the fact that they nailed like they stepped back into the roles pretty damn well. Like obviously they're a little bit older. Tobey Maguire looks a lot older. Andrew Garfield, it's only been 7 years, but it's been 14 years since the last we've seen Tobey Maguire. But they step back comfortably into the roles, and here comes, if you want to call it fan service, if you want to call it a celebration of Spider-Man, I call it more of a celebration of Spider-Man than anything else. All the dialogue between all the Peters and with Ned's character and MJ's character was all snappy. It all made sense to the characters. The jokes were on point. The crowd was eating it up. I was grinning from ear to ear. I knew they were going to reference the organic webs from the unfortunate, I don't know why Raimi still did organic webs from the original Spider-Man trilogy instead of web shooters, but at least it paid off in this movie because you have Andrew Garfield's starting like, what the hell, where is that coming from? And then later on, they even go back to that again with Tom Holland Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, wondering what the hell's up with your webs, Toby? Why don't you have web shooters? And so it was nice to see them address those points that fans had major issues with, almost 20 years ago when we first found out that there wouldn't be mechanical web shooters. That was a big deal at the time. If you were on the internet back in 2001 when they revealed that, that was not a small deal. That was a big deal among Spider-Man fans. Thank God there wasn't Twitter back then or social media, because I would have been on there complaining. 21-year-old Pat would have been complaining about that. But it goes back to my expectations were exceeded. I thought that you'd get Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in these movies for like 15 minutes. The last like half hour maybe. They're in the movie for more than that. They work these characters in pretty well. You see them all in the labs using their smarts, trying to figure out, all three Spider-Man how to all three Peters really, how to figure out how to change basically solve the villain's dilemmas, change them back to being normal. You know, they first do it with Octavius. Well, Tom Holland's character does, and then they have to think of solutions to the rest. I'm like, I said, this is I appreciate. You see them using their intelligence, and that's why Peter was always so good. Working class hero, no money, comes from no money. It's not rich kid, blue collar, but uses his intelligence. So I was surprised they used the characters that much. Pulled on the heartstrings and referencing past loved ones. Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy, who passed away in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And of course, you know, you talk about the death of Ben Parker in the first Spider-Man movie, which all brings it then to the climax, which is a very, very well done big battle sequence between all three Spider-Man and between 5 villains. Green Goblin, Sandman, Lizard, Electro. Because by that point, Dr. Octopus is a good guy, and maybe he comes back and helps a little bit, which I love that character. It's like, because Alfred Molina's character was always like, okay, he got the circuit go in the back of his head, and that what made him go crazy because the mechanical arms took over his brain. So I love that. I love that all three Spider-Men get a chance to shine in their battles, and their personalities come out. Was it perfect? No, but I liked it. They worked together for a bit. They had some one-on-one fights back and forth, meeting their old nemesis again. Nemesis again. And of course, Willem Dafoe steals the show. And I love the fact there's a callback to the first Spider-Man movie. There's a brutal hand-to-hand combat fight, just no tricks, just duke it out between Green Goblin and Tom Holland Spider-Man at the end. And I'm like, good. This is how it should be. It should be just down to earth and just fucking brutality, especially since Spider-Man #1, Tom Holland, wants revenge for Norman killing Aunt May. And they hit all these beats that I didn't think they would hit in this film. And they hit them very well. And then even in the end, Spider-Man down on his luck. Doctor Strange does a spell that everyone forgets who Spider-Man is in order to prevent the multiverse from happening even worse, even though it's already, I think, happening. And then so Spider-Man down on his luck. But this is why this was a real origin movie to me, or like the third of an origin movie, the last third of one, because with great power comes great responsibility was hit home. Thank you, because that is an integral part of the character. The same way Superman is, from planet Krypton, the same way Batman's parents were killed. You have to have these elements as part of the character. Whatever the iteration of Peter Parker, you have to have that line, because that's who the character is. But he's down on his luck, but no more Stark costume shit. He sews his own costume at the end. He looks like just good old, you want to say, Steve Ditko Spider-Man / my favorite, John Romita Jr. From the mid-'60s to early 70s about. It's my favorite look of Spider-Man's costume ever. You get your real Spider-Man. He's going to go into college. He's got his own apartment. That's Spider-Man. So supposedly the next trilogy is going to be the college trilogy. And I look forward to it because we're past all my complaints where, not Iron Lad, but too much hero worship of Tony Stark and too much reliance on other superheroes. You had super reliance on Iron Man in the first movie. He was almost a co-star in a way. And then in the second movie, you kept constantly hearing about Stark, still left and right. And in the third movie, Doctor Strange is in it, but it makes more sense to the plot to have Strange in the third movie, so I have not as many complaints about that. But I want to see Spider-Man stand on his own. The character is important enough and good enough that the character can stand on his own in movies going forward. I would love to see a Kraven the Hunter movie. That was the rumor that was going to be a movie before. If they couldn't pull off this big deal, it was going to be a Kraven movie. It was going to be, because I think they already cast it. So I'm looking forward to a Kraven movie. I think a Kraven could work. So this goes into my minor quibbles. The fact that we've done a decent amount in all three iterations so far, a decent amount. We've done all the Sinister Six characters, except for Kraven, who was in the original Sinister Six, then was out of it. We've done all the major Spider-Man villains, like the big villains, with the exception of a couple that are Spider-Man related. So will they bring back their version of Dr. Octopus or no? Probably not. Then they'll probably go elsewhere. But we'll now go into the other two surprise things that happened. One was spoiled. By the way, all the leaks were real. I was thinking, okay, that leak's not real. I recognized every picture, the video, the 4K fucking video of Andrew Garfield. I said, that's in the movie from this point. I don't know how that was leaked. That if that wasn't done on purpose, that was like a feed from the fucking camera that got leaked of Andrew Garfield crouched down with his arm up on the fucking railing outside of the Statue of Liberty. Like, that was there. That was in the movie. And then the crowd went nuts. Not as much to my liking. Charlie Cox is back as Matt Murdock, a.k.a. Daredevil. It was a nice 1.5-minute scene. Didn't need for it to be in the movie. But, they're bringing back Daredevil back in the groove. Kingpin's back in the Hawkeye series. So they are acknowledging the Netflix stuff in some way. And that was great. That was fan service, but I didn't care because the Daredevil Netflix series is as close as you're going to get to a translation of a character from a comic book in any of these movies or TV shows. It's fantastic, that show. If you haven't seen it, go see those 3 seasons on Netflix. So that's in there. So maybe Spider-Man will face the Kingpin one of these next 3 movies. That wouldn't be bad. Remember, Kingpin's an original Spider-Man villain. Issue number 50, Spider-Man No More, first appearance of Kingpin. I should have bought that comic 20 years ago. So the other thing I'm going to say is we're going to see the black suit at some point, the symbiote suit. The mid-credit sequence, which I think was the post-credit sequence from the Venom sequel, which I don't want to see because I'm not into Venom that much, but I do like the black symbiote stuff. I like the Venom stuff as well, but I don't like, once you get the Carnage, I don't like it. It's too much. One symbiote's enough, not like 18 of them. So the way it works is that, like, if you knew who Spider-Man was, you would come into this universe. Well, they didn't really explain that with how Tom Hardy's Venom knew Eddie Brock, how he knew who Spider-Man was, but they got him into the universe for basically just to get a drink, and he zaps out with the rest of the villains that go back, and then leaves behind just a little bit of the alien symbiote. So I'm not saying you're going to see that in Spider-Man, Disney Spider-Man 4, but you might see it in Disney Spider-Man 5. I probably would do it in 5 personally. Get the black suit on him, and then if you want to bring Venom back. But this means there's going to be a different Venom, though. You're gonna see a third iteration of Venom, and it might be done to my standards. I thought, okay, they're just going to bring in Tom Hardy's character to fight Spider-Man. No. They're going to go back to a black suit first. Please make one movie a black suit, just one movie, and then have him get rid of the costume at the end of that movie or the beginning of the sequel. Give him a chance to breathe with that black suit the entire movie. That was one of the problems with Spider-Man 3. Sandman was enough by itself. Sandman and Harry Osborn getting revenge. That's enough for a movie. Doing the third villain was just ridiculous with Venom. You cannot have Venom shoehorned into a movie with 2 other major villains. You can't. So I was happy to see that. I even slammed my knee and said, damn it. I said, they're going to do it right. I mean, they can't do Secret Wars. You're not going to see a movie with all the villains and all the Marvel villains and heroes going at each other. And then Spider-Man gets a tear on his costume, uses an alien machine, and then it gets the black symbiote suit. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see the real comic Venom, but you're going to see closer than you wanted to see. Not just a fucking meteor falling out of the sky randomly. At least this makes sense more than Spider-Man 3. So kudos to the team for thinking of that. Kudos. That's fantastic. I was happy to ear to ear. I was very happy with this. So, what longer than I thought. Closing thoughts. Like I said, 9 out of 10. There's a minor quibbles here and there, but they did justice to the character of Spider-Man. They did justice and some good closure in ways to Andrew Garfield's character. Only get, unfortunately, had 2 movies. Well, unfortunate, but like the second movie was not that good. But you got some closure, at least to seeing him again and getting to have some more fun, and gets his redemption in a way of saving. Couldn't save Gwen Stacy, but he saves Mary Jane. That's what I'm pissed about Sony for. They showed MJ falling in the trailer. That should have been a surprise to people. That should have been a surprise. That's what pissed me off the most about their marketing. There's a lot they couldn't show because it would have been masked with spoilers, but showing MJ fall, that should have been a surprise to people. So he gets that. Tobey Maguire's Peter says, yeah, I worked out with MJ. Great. I would have loved to see Kirsten Dunst. I think even seeing him come back to Kirsten Dunst in his own world and Andrew to his own world for like 30 seconds, I think that's what was missing for me. Besides Sandman's arc being a little off. I wanted to see Toby and Andrew Garfield back in their own universes. Not for like 5-10 minutes. Give me like 30 seconds each. 30 seconds. He's back. Maybe he sees Andrew Garfield says hi to his Aunt May. And then you have Tobey Maguire go back to his universe and sees Kirsten Dunst's MJ. Maybe they have a little baby or something. I don't know. That what was missing to me. Maybe it'll be in the extended cut. There's gonna be an extended cut. But I'm actually curious about seeing an extended version of this film because they balanced about 12 characters very well in this film. It's never going to be perfect, but 9 out of 10. Go see it. And I'm happy I could be alive to see a movie that you can see several Spider-Man villains, 3 different Spider-Men. I couldn't have dreamed of this, 20 years ago as late teens, early 20s, seeing my favorite character come to life like this. Go see it. Enjoy it.